why don't we start then with Hunter Biden and his plea deal slash pretrial diversion agreement. Can you just walk us through exactly what he's agreed to here?
Sure. So Hunter Biden, who's been under investigation for years and has been negotiating with Department of Justice for years openly, has agreed to plead to, first of all, 2 tax misdemeanors. If you want to get hyper technical, this is Title 26, Section 7203, that makes it a crime to willfully fail to file a tax return when you're supposed to. And then he's also not pleading to, but agreed to enter a diversion program for a charge of possessing a gun while a prohibited person, specifically someone who is an addict or user of illegal drugs. And that's under Title 18, Section 922, which I know you know and write a lot about.
Yes. And the key point there, too, because I've seen a lot of misreporting on this, he's not copping to lying on the background check form when he bought the gun. He's copping to this charge of possessing the gun while being a drug user. Actually, I was wondering if you could shed any light as to why they would have gone that direction instead of the background check form.
It's a little speculative. It may be that because the lying charge, the 1001, is a little harder to prove, and that you have to prove like he was willfully lying, that he realized, at that moment, oh, I'm an addict, or, oh, I'm a habitual user, or whatever. That's the intent required.
Could he still be charged with that crime later down the line? Or how does this, I assume once you strike a deal like this with federal prosecutors, they're not coming back around to try and get you over basically a parallel crime.
Well, you got to read the back of your ticket really carefully, Stephen. You got to look at your plea agreement because it spells out exactly what they're agreeing to. And generally it says, we won't charge you further for this set of facts, but this deal binds only us, not other districts, other states, whatever. But in the vast number of cases, right, if you resolve this with a deal, they would not be coming back based on the same set of facts to charge you again.
Okay. So, I know his lawyer has said that they feel that this closes the investigation into him. I think that the district attorney in Delaware or the U.S. attorney, who was a Trump holdover, who was looking into all this from before Hunter's father became president, but has said something along the lines of this might not be completely over. I guess there's a little bit of uncertainty at that point.
Well, there's a line in the press release that says the investigation is ongoing. That could mean something, but it just could be boilerplate. Yeah. One of the things about following federal criminal law is that a ton of the stuff you see in the documents or in press releases or stuff like that, you think, why did they put that in there? And they put that in there because it's been in there since 1980 or something. It's not a thoughtful thing.
Okay. Yeah. It sure seems like, at least as far as the gun purchase situation goes, or the gun ownership, that's resolved by this deal. But speaking of which, what exactly, as far as what's been reported, I think the New York Times had the details. We don't have the plea agreement, but we have reporting on it from the New York Times that indicates there are 2 conditions for this pretrial diversion program. But actually, before we get into that, pretrial diversion, right? What exactly happens here? He's being charged with this, but not really. Or explain it for anyone who's not a lawyer, I guess.
Sure. The federal system, pretrial diversion just means that you've been charged, but they're going to suspend all proceedings. And if you stay out of trouble and do whatever it is the deal requires you to do for a period of time, then at the end it'll be dismissed. You won't be further prosecuted. You won't have a conviction.
And why is that different from like probation?
Well, because with probation, you wind up with a conviction. So probation is part of a criminal sentence. So to get probation, you have to be convicted of something. And so the federal system recognizes, sometimes maybe they don't want someone to have a conviction for something. First-time offenders, young people, extremely sympathetic circumstances, that type of thing. So sometimes you can get a diversion. It's more common in some districts than others. It's not particularly common here in LA. It's more common on the East Coast, I understand. But it's certainly a known thing. This is not a unique case.
Okay. And so he won't be a felon. That's not part of this deal. He will be he's agreeing to plead guilty to misdemeanors, but the felony charge, which is the gun charge, that is in this pretrial diversion, which as long as he follows the conditions, which we'll get into in a second here, he won't become a felon at the end of it.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the pretrial conditions, one of the interesting things, so the two that we have information on so far, one of them is the same punishment as if he had been convicted of a felony, which is that he can't own guns ever again. Is that a normal condition? How does that work? How can you give up your gun rights for life under a pretrial diversion program like this?
Well, I mean, you can contract away your rights all the time, and we do it every day. And you can contract away rights in plea resolutions of cases and investigations. A very common one is, you have a right to appeal your sentence, but it's very common when you plead guilty to a federal crime that they make you give up that right as part of the deal. Similarly, if you want a really good deal, and diversion is a good deal, then it's not surprising that they'd do something that make you give up something or make you agree to something that you might not want to do. And I think when you and I were talking earlier, you pointed out it's not clear that Hunter Biden was really into guns before or owned one before or anything like that. So we don't really know what this means to him. Yeah. But it's certainly it's a significant constitutional right he's giving up for life.
Yeah. The other condition seems much more run-of-the-mill obvious, which is that he can't do drugs for 24 months. So what happens if he fails either one of these conditions?
Well, there are two kind of sets of consequences. One set is that no matter what his sentence is on the tax misdemeanors, there's going to be a condition of probation if he gets probation, or supervised release if he spends a term in jail, that he not do illegal drugs and not break the law. So it would be a violation of that, and that would pose the chance that he would get revoked, meaning if he's on probation, they would haul him in, they might revoke probation and put him in jail. If he's on supervised release, think of supervised release kind of like what parole used to be. It's a term of supervision after you're done with jail. You could be sent back to jail. So there's that side of it. On the diversion side, not as clear. We're going to need to see what the deal says, but in theory, they could decide to go through with prosecuting the gun charge, the 18 USC 922 G3. Now, there would be some problems with that. Those may be surmountable, but there would be constitutional problems with it.